Brian walked down the steps and into the kitchen, ready for a quiet breakfast. But someone was waiting for him, waiting behind the door.
Please, Brian, please, come on, let me do it, please.
It was Brian's sister, Jan.
Jan, you almost scared me out of my socks.
I'm sorry, Brian. I just need to know. Can I deliver your newspapers while you're away at soccer camp, please?
Oh, sis, I really don't think so. You know I always let Roger sub for me.
Oh, please, Brian, I'm old enough now. And a girl can deliver newspapers just as well as a boy.
Okay. But sis, you have to follow my instructions perfectly. Do you understand? First of all, you have to start delivering at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Don't worry about me. I'll start at 5:30.
Good. And you have to put rubber bands around every newspaper so they won't blow away.
I know that.
And Jan, you have to promise me that no matter what, you'll leave a newspaper at Old Man Axelburn's house.
Old Man Axelburn's house? But it's empty. And it's kind of spooky. Why do I have to leave?
Jan, you'll just have to trust me.
No one had lived in Old Man Axelburn's house since the old grouch passed away over 60 years ago. Since then, the house had been abandoned, except for the stray dogs, bats, and raccoons who entered through the broken windows to escape the wind and cold. The only person in town who remembered Old Man Axelburn was Jan and Brian's grandfather. In fact, he used to deliver Mr. Axelburn's newspapers when he was a little boy.
I used to think everyone had some good in them, but that Axelburn had the soul of a viper. If his newspaper was a minute late, he'd try to get you fired, or worse, he'd sick his evil dog on you. And if you got his paper to him on time, you'd think he'd be happy? No. Only one time, after I got him his paper during the worst snowstorm of the year, did he ever give me a tip. And you know what that tip was? A rusty old bottle cap. Then he slammed the door in my face and sent me on my way.
Brian carefully studied his sister.
So, sis, are you sure you want to take over my newspaper route?
Yeah, of course I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure.
Jan's first delivery day was Sunday. Why did it have to be Sunday, she wondered. Sunday's newspapers were the biggest, filled with coupons and special sections that made them weigh as much as a St. Bernard. With all her strength, she threw a bundle of papers into her bag and went on her way. By 8 o'clock that morning, she had delivered 50 newspapers and still had 109 more to go. She felt like she had been on a 20-mile hike. Her legs were aching and her arms felt as limp as dead flowers. She glanced down at the list her brother had given her to see which house would be her next stop. And as she feared, it was Old Man Axelburn's. The house, or what was left of it, was at the top of a hill made longer by the winding pathway that led to its door. Through the gangly weeds, she counted 25 steps leading to the front porch, and for her, that was 25 reasons to skip this creepy old house and go to the next stop on the route.
No one will ever know.
She cut across the street, never even looking at Old Man Axelburn's house. It was almost noon when Jan finally finished. When she returned to her home, her feet feeling like 2 slabs of concrete, her parents met her at the door. They told her that they were going out to lunch and wanted to know if she would like to come along. But Jan, feeling more tired than she had ever felt in her life, could barely hear them. She dragged herself to bed and fell asleep, and nothing was going to wake her up. That is, except the phone. Normally, the sound of a phone would not cause Jan to jump up in fright, but this was different, because the phone that was ringing, was a toy phone. It had never ever rung before. In fact, it didn't even have a ringer. Jan wondered what to do. Should she answer it? Should she let it ring? Gingerly, she picked up the phone. From out of the receiver blew an ice-cold wind, as if the call were coming from another world. And then, from beneath the dark and deadly chill came a voice cold and lifeless as a buried coffin.
Where's my paper? Where's my paper?
Jan hung up the phone, but she could still hear the voice, repeating the same desperate plea over and over until it seeped into the walls and creeped into the floor. The voice was getting louder and louder. Then the lamp on the desk began to flash on and off. and her dolls and stuffed animals began clapping in rhythm to the haunting voice. Jan looked out the window and in her horror saw that the noontime sky had turned black and stormy. Jan was scared, but she still had her wits. She knew there was only one thing to do. She took the one newspaper she had left and threw it in her delivery bag. She then jumped out the window and got on her bike and headed towards Old Man Axelburn's house. As she rode, the haunting voice followed her. When she got to the Axelburn house, the wind was blowing like a tornado. She reached into her bag for the newspaper, but when she tried to grab it, someone or something was clutching the other end. She looked down. It was a ghostly dog, snarling and growling with a crazed, bloodthirsty look on its ghoulish face. With all her remaining strength, she pulled the newspaper away from the dog and flung it in the air. The dog stopped growling and watched as the wind took hold of the newspaper, throwing it back and forth in the sky like a kite until it landed right on the doorstep of Old Man Axelburn's. And all of a sudden, the wind stopped. Just like that, it stopped. Jan went back to her house and back to her room. She was exhausted, even more than before, and truth be told, she was not sure if what she had experienced was real. Then she looked at her nightstand, and what she saw there on the nightstand gave her icy cold chills. It was scary enough to keep her awake that afternoon, that night, and the next night too, because on the nightstand there was a rusty old bottle cap.